my YouTube channel. Today, I am going to discuss about a man of many talents, the author of many books and articles, the researcher, economist, strategy advisor, and a teacher at the Harvard University Business School. Do you know who am I referring to? It's Michael Porter, an American economist who is known for his theories on economics, business strategy, and social causes. He is the author of my topic today, the competitive strategy, a techniques for analyzing industries and competitors.
Brief biography. Michael Porter was born on May 23, 1947 in Michigan, United States, and has lived and traveled throughout the world as the son of a civil engineer who had a career as an Army officer. He was an all-state high school football and baseball player. He played intercollegiate golf and was named to the 1968 NCAA Golf All-American team at Princeton. After graduating from college, Professor Porter served through the rank of captain in the U.S. Army Reserve, went to Princeton University to study for BSE with high honors in aeronautical engineering in 1969. He then shifted his focus to business and went to Harvard Business School, where he received an MBA in 1971, where he was a George F. Baker Scholar. He received his PhD in business economics from Harvard University in 1973. Porter said in an interview that he first became interested in competition when he played NCAA championship golf squad at Princeton University. Porter credits Harvard professor Roland Chris Christensen when the professor inspired him and encouraged him to speak up during class, with a note in handwriting saying, "Mr. Porter, you have a lot to contribute in the class and I hope you will." In 2000, Michael Porter was appointed Bishop William Lawrence University Professor at Harvard, the university's highest recognition awarded to Harvard faculty. Harvard Business School and Harvard University jointly created the Institute for Strategy and Competitiveness dedicated to furthering Professor Porter's work. He is the author of 19 books and more than 130 articles, among which are How Competitive Forces Shape Strategy in 1979, Competitive Strategy, Techniques for Analyzing Industries and Competitors in 1980, his first book-length publication on strategy. The book has been translated into 19 languages. Competitive Advantage, Creating and Sustaining Superior Performance in 1985, his second major strategy book. Competition and Strategy in 1986, course becomes part of MBA curriculum at Harvard Business School. The Competitive Advantage of Nations in 1990. Michael Porter has taught generations of students at Harvard Business School and across the entire university, as well as business, government, and healthcare leaders from around the world. He serves as an advisor to business, government, and the social sector, and has been a strategy advisor to leading U.S. and international companies, served on Fortune 500 public boards, and played an active role in U.S. economic policy. He worked with heads of state from around the world on economic development strategy. Honors and recognitions. 21 honorary doctorates, 7 times winner of Mackenzie Award for the Best Harvard Business Review article. Professor Porter was named the Richard D. Irwin Outstanding Educator in Business Policy and Strategy by the Academy of Management in 1993. Adam Smith Award of the National Association of Business Economists, a recognition of his exceptional contributions to the business economics profession in 1997. An honorary fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh in 2005. In the same year also, he was awarded the John Kenneth Galbraith Medal presented by the American Agricultural Economics Association, Academy of Management Career Achievement Award, Distinguished Scholarly Contributions to Management. In his 2010 interview, Michael Porter stated that, "What I've come to see as probably my greatest gift is the ability to take an extraordinarily complex, integrated, multi-dimensional problem and get arms around it conceptually in a way that helps, that informs and empowers practitioners to actually do things. In his book, Competitive Strategy, A Techniques for Analyzing Industries and Competitors in 1980, consists of analytical techniques or methods about competition and competitive strategy. It helps every business managers in analyzing the firm's industry, its competitors, and its position to the market. So what is strategy? According to Michael Porter, strategy is about making choices, trade-offs. It's about deliberately choosing to be different. A strategy is performing different activities from rivals or performing similar activities in different ways. A company can outperform rivals only if it can establish a difference it can preserve. It must deliver greater value to customers or create comparable value at a lower cost or do both. Strategy is to meet the aspiration of the customer. Strategy must have continuity. It can be constantly reinvented. How is an organization going to win? Competing to be the best, competing to be unique. The worst error in strategy is to compete with rivals on the same dimensions. What is competitive strategy? It is a strategy that firmly positions the company against a competitor and gives the company the most substantial possible strategic advantage. Competitive strategy is about being different. It means deliberately choosing a different set of activities to deliver a unique mix of value, choosing to perform activities differently than rivals. Competitive strategies helps in building profitable customer relationships, gaining competitive advantage, analyzing the competitors. Porter's generic competitive strategy. To be successful and to make profits in a competitive market, every organization needs to have a clear objective and best strategy to gain a competitive advantage. So what is competitive advantage? Competitive advantage, according to Porter, is what makes an entity's goods or services superior to all of customers' other choices. The strategy works for any business organization, country, or individual in a competitive environment. It refers to the factors or attributes that allow a given company to produce more affordable or higher quality services or products than its competitors. To be successful, your competitive advantage must be able to articulate the benefit you provide to your target markets that's better than the competition. Porter's generic strategy, you are going to make a decision for the company. Should you offer a unique product or service or the lowest price, or should you focus on a narrow market instead of the broad one? Porter's generic strategies can help you to make the best choice for your organization. In his book Competitive Advantage, Creating and Sustaining Superior Performance, Michael Porter suggested that generic strategies have two key dimensions: the scope of strategy and the source of competitive advantage. Scope strategy, a company can target a broad market and narrow or focused market. For the source of competitive advantage, the company could be either a low cost or differentiation. This forms four quadrants that represent the four generic competitive strategies of Michael Porter: the cost leadership, differentiation focus, cost focus, and differentiation focus. For the cost leadership strategy, they are a low-cost provider, targets broad market, focuses on increasing profits by reducing operating costs and charging lower prices. The firm competes on the price with every other industries. Cost reduction is the focus of the organization's strategy. Competitive advantage is achieved by driving down cost. The firm is a cost leader and is unchallenged in this position, especially when the customers are price sensitive. Examples of the company using the strategies are Tesco, Walmart, and Dell Computer Company. These companies is rolling out its everyday low prices in the emerging market. Offering a lower cost makes them unable to attain higher profits than competitors. Risk involved, other firms may be able to lower their costs as well. As technologies improves, the competition may be able to leapfrog the production capabilities, thus eliminating the competitive advantage. There might be difficulty in sustaining cost leadership in the long run. A firm following a focused strategy might be able to achieve even lower cost within their segment. The differentiation strategy provides a unique and high-quality products, targets broad market customers, creating a product or service that is perceived as being unique throughout the industry. focuses on making products or services that are different, unique, and attractive that of rivals through good branding and valued by customers. The value added by a uniqueness of the product may allow the firm to charge a premium price for it. Differentiation can be based on the product image or branding and high-quality products or services. It requires good research, strong marketing to understand the benefits offered by the differentiated products or services. The differentiating organization will incur additional costs in creating their competitive advantage. Examples: McDonald's, Nike, Apple Company, constantly developing the business and product innovation to make them distinct from its rivals. These companies offer products that customers really want to have and are willing to pay a high price for the brand. This allows the companies with differentiated high-quality products and services makes high profits than their competitors. Risk involves higher cost. Customers might become price sensitive and choose on price rather than uniqueness. Customers may no longer need the differentiation factor. Imitation by competitors with lower price will change the customer taste. Rivals pursuing a focused strategy may be able to achieve even greater differentiation in the market segments. The focus strategy or niche concentrates on particular niche markets and develop uniquely low-cost or well-specified products for a particular market segment. The strategy makes it less attractive to competitors. The company focuses on serving a few market segments well rather than going after the whole market. Focus strategy has two variants: cost focus, differentiation focus. Cost focus competing based on price to target a narrow market. Differentiation focus offering unique features that fulfill the demands of a narrow market. A firm using a focus strategy often enjoys a high degree of customer loyalty, and this entrenched loyalty discourages other firms from competing indirectly. Examples: Mercedes-Benz, Lamborghini, and Rolex. Risk involved: limited opportunities for growth. The firm could outgrow the market. Danger of decline in the chosen segment or niche. Risk of imitation. Risk of changes in the target segment. A reputation for specialization inhibits move into new sector. Now you're going to decide which generic strategy you are going to choose. If you choose a cost leadership strategy, you must continuously find ways of reducing cost strategy. The risk is when your competitors will copy your cost reduction strategies, your competitors may undercut your prices that may hinder to increase your market share. If you pursue a differentiation strategy, an organization must stay agile with their new product development processes. The rest is if your competitors pursue focused differentiation strategies in different market segments, you need to concentrate on creating a highly differentiated product line and marketing program to become a class leader in the industry. Both cost leadership and differentiation are relatively broad in market scope and can encompass both strategic advantages on a smaller scale. Firms pursuing a focused strategy have lower volumes and therefore less bargaining power with their suppliers. However, firms pursuing a differentiation focused strategy may be able to pass higher costs onto customers since close substitute products do not exist. If you select one or more approaches and then fail to achieve them, your organization gets stuck in the middle without a competitive advantage.
Porter warns that companies who try to accomplish both cost leadership and differentiation may fall into the hole in the middle or stuck in the middle. Firms are less profitable because of viable generic strategy. Porter explains that a firm is successful in cost leadership strategy when it has a high market share, while in differentiation strategy and focus strategy, a firm is successful too when it has a low market share because they are less attractive to the competitors. So when you choose which of the three generic strategies you are going to pursue, it is necessary to select the generic strategy that gives you the strongest set position in the market. Carrying out the SWOT analysis and identifying the 5 forces analysis of the company can help you understand the nature of the industry you are in. Compare the results of both analyses so you can decide and choose a right generic strategy for your company. Choosing the strategy for your organization is crucial to gaining competitive edge over your rivals. By choosing Porter generic strategies model, you'll be able to identify identify the strategy that you need to lead your organization to success.
Another competitive strategy of Michael Porter is the Porter's 5 Forces model. Introduces the 5 Forces model to understand the company's structure. It is a business analysis model that explains why various industries can sustain different profitability levels. The model is widely used worldwide to analyze the company's industry structure and its corporate strategy. It plays a vital role in shaping every market and industry globally with some cautions and limitations. It is used to measure the competition intensity, attractiveness, and profitability of an industry or market. So the 5 competitive forces that affect the company's competitive positions are the threat of new entrants, the threat of substitution, the bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers, rivalry among existing competitors. For the threat of new entrants, how easy or hard it is for new entrants to start and compete. For the threat of substitution, how easy or hard it is to substitute or replace a new product or service that already exists. For bargaining power of suppliers, how strong is the position of the suppliers, how many potential suppliers do you have? For bargaining powers of buyer, how strong is the position of the buyers, how easy for the buyers to drive down your prices. For rivalry among existing competitors, how intense is the rivalry among existing players. So here is the video presentation from the Swedish investor Competitive Strategy by Michael Porter.
The most important factor to consider before making a long-term stock market investment isn't how good the management of the company is, how the company is currently priced, and it is certainly not what the stock looks like on a Japanese candlestick chart. The most important factor to consider before making a long-term stock market investment is whether the company you are looking at has a sustainable competitive advantage, which will allow it to be profitable for many years to come. Companies like Apple, Johnson & Johnson and Visa thrive, while companies like American Airlines, British Petroleum and Fiat Chrysler barely scrape by. But why? Well, that's what you will learn in this video, and this is a top 5 takeaway summary of Competitive Strategy, written by Michael Porter. And this is the Swedish Investor, bringing you the best tips and tools for reaching financial freedom through stock market investing. Takeaway number 1. Porter's 5 Forces. If you are a business student, you will probably recognize this. Porter's 5 Forces is a model for determining the potential returns of an industry, which is taught at every business university in the world, and for a good reason. Warren Buffett, the greatest investor of all time, refers to a company that is performing well consistently as a company that has a sustainable moat. Companies that are performing well are constantly challenged by competitors of all sorts, but with a deep and wide moat, preferably filled with lots of crocodiles, the companies can sustain such attacks. In Warren Buffett's annual shareholder meeting of 2001, he admits that him and Porter think alike when it comes to determining this moat. Quote, "We call it a moat, and he turns it all into a book." The state of competition within an industry is decided by 5 forces, and long-run returns on invested capital are decided by these 2. The 5 forces are threat of entry, threat of substitution, bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers, and intensity of rivalry. The goal for a particular firm should be to position itself strategically within its industry so it can best defend itself from these forces, or, if possible, manipulate them to its favor. In the coming takeaways, we will do a deep dive into these forces so that you will be able to determine how well a firm is positioned for yourself. In fact, this video might as well have been called a breakdown of Porter's 5 forces instead of a top 5 takeaway summary of competitive strategy. But, you know, I don't really want to fiddle with the concept that works. Takeaway number 2. Threat of entry. The first force to consider is how easy it is to enter the industry. Football is a really competitive sport, since it is really easy to enter. All you need is a ball, and it can be practiced all over the world. Slalom skiing, on the other hand, is less competitive, as it requires expensive equipment to participate in and can only be practiced in countries with skiing resorts. You want to invest in companies within industries where the threat of entry is low. Preferably, you'd like to own a monopoly, so your company can decide pretty much whatever prices it wants. But governments usually interrupt here. An industry is difficult to enter if it possesses high barriers of entry, and you want entry barriers as high as the Chinese wall. Here are 6 examples of such barriers. Economies of scale. If larger players in the industry can achieve lower costs, it is difficult for a new firm to enter, as it per definition must be small in the beginning. Economies of scale can exist in business functions such as production, marketing, distribution, administration, etc. Product differentiation. Existing firms have high customer loyalty already, which may be difficult to replace. This is why pretty much every company wants to create a brand name. Capital requirements. If entering the industry is associated with high upfront costs, such as building a large production plant or spending lots of money on R&D, it will scare some competitors off. Switching costs. It may not always be so easy to convince a customer to switch from a product to another, because it may be associated with things such as retraining, new testing, product redesign, etc. For instance, I don't want to switch from my iPhone simply because I dread having to relearn a new mobile interface again. Cost disadvantages. A firm coming in late may face cost disadvantages, like being late in the learning curve or getting less favorable access to raw materials. Governmental policies. Access to an industry can be completely denied by a government. For example, YouTube is banned in China. In addition to this, the threat of entry can be mitigated by retaliation of the companies within the industry. A firm will enter the industry if it forecasts that the potential reward for being in it is greater than the cost of overcoming these barriers of entry and the retaliation that is likely to happen. An industry which is almost impossible of entering is that of railroads. It takes a ton of capital, and it is an enormous risk to build a second railroad network next to an already existing one, so therefore it keeps competitors away. On the other hand, me and my fellow YouTubers have very low barriers of entry. It is relatively easy for someone to start a channel from scratch without any prior experience. Therefore, competition on YouTube is very high. Takeaway number 3. Threat of substitution. Substitute products are those that do not belong in the same industry, but that fulfill a similar need. For example, a mobile phone is a substitute for a landline phone, and many other things, by the way. Social media is a substitute for newspapers. A train is a substitute for a car. Yet these obviously do not belong in the same industry. Substitutes create price ceilings for industries. As an investor, you therefore prefer to invest in companies where there is only a low threat from substitutes. There are 2 substitutes that you should especially watch out for. Those that are becoming cheaper relative to their performance, and those that earn high returns on capital. Such substitute industries are likely to have more entries in the future, which will drive prices down within that industry and have spillover effects in the industry that you are considering to invest in yourself. Companies within the industry of power grids face pretty much no substitute at all. We need electricity, and nothing is likely to change that in the coming future, in my opinion. No matter how that electricity is produced, someone must transport it. On the other side of the spectrum, we have the newspapers. For the longest of times, they had monopoly-like situations for the service of delivering news to their hometowns. These days, however, they face competition from online papers and social media, which has pretty much killed the industry and the companies within it. Takeaway number 4. Bargaining power of suppliers/buyers. These two forces can be included in the same takeaway, as they mirror each other perfectly. If Industry A is the supplier, Industry B is the customer, and it's in this relationship that a kind of power struggle can occur. A supplier can stop delivering the product, raise prices, or lower quality. Similarly, a buyer can stop buying the product, demand lower prices, or demand higher quality. You want to invest in companies within industries which are winning this power struggle, both against their suppliers and customers. Here are 6 factors that help an industry to mitigate the power of its suppliers. Large portion of suppliers' sales. If the industry represents most of the suppliers' sales, they live and die together, and it's in the supplier's interest to remain friendly. Large portion of buyer's budget. Similarly, if the cost is a large one for the industry, it typically commands more power in the bargaining process, as it has a very serious incentive to keep prices low. Undifferentiated purchases. If the purchased products are commodities, the industry can get lower prices than otherwise. Low switching costs. If it is simple and relatively cheap to switch from one supplier to another, suppliers will be in less of a position to command premium prices. Threat of backward integration. Backward integration is when a company decides to compete directly with its suppliers in their industry, in other words, take over their operations. For example, an auto manufacturer may decide that it wants to create all the components of the cars itself, and that it also wants to mine all the ores necessary for creating such components. Now, this is not very likely. Nonetheless, the simpler it would be for an industry to take over the operations of the supplying industry, the better. Unimportant for buyers' quality. If the product that is purchased is unimportant for the quality of the industry's product, high prices are never accepted. It should be noted that workers for an industry counts as suppliers as well. If you mirror this, you'll get 6 factors that help an industry to mitigate the power of its buyers. An example of an industry that has been good at mitigating the power of its suppliers is that of the supermarkets. Suppliers of goods to these firms, at least most of them, must accept that supermarkets are powerful players of distributing their products, if they want to be represented on the product shelves. The airlines industry is in a different situation. With only 2 main suppliers of airplanes, in Airbus and Boeing, it was a tough industry to be in, even before the current COVID-19 situation. Takeaway number 5. Intensity of rivalry. The final force to consider is how tough the competition among existing firms in the industry is. Price cutting, advertising battles, new product introductions, and increased customer service are common weapons of choice here, and they all lead to lower profitability for companies within the industry. Therefore, you prefer to invest in a company within an industry where the intensity of rivalry is low. Here are a few factors which typically lead to low competition. Concentrated and/or few companies. You prefer to see that the industry is dominated by a few players only. Companies are then familiar with the hierarchy of the industry, and larger companies can often discipline smaller ones that tries to do something stupid. High industry growth. With a growing industry, most companies can fulfill their promises of expansion to their shareholders without waging price wars. Low fixed costs. High fixed costs often lead to overcapacity and incentives for firms to sell products at lower prices just to cover the fixed costs. For example, an industrial company may just have built a new production plant that can produce 1,000 units of product X per day. The price difference of producing 1,000 units, or say 700 units a day, could be quite small. If the demand of the product is only 700 units a day at the current price, the company may decide to cut prices to sell at the full capacity of 1,000 units, as this doesn't cost much extra anyways. the car manufacturing industry face this problem. For example, generally, you don't want to see such behavior in industries that you invest in. High differentiation. If customers perceive the products of the companies within the industry as somewhat different, price sensitivity will be much lower. Commodity products such as oil and gas producers and mining companies have very low product differentiation and therefore have problems with this. An example of an industry which has been able to mitigate the force of rivalry is soft drinks. The major players here have such strong brands that their products are perceived as different. Therefore, they have commanded high returns on capital for many decades now. Hairdressers exist on the other side of the spectrum. They haven't been able to handle this force very well. Again, in the long run, the returns of an industry is pretty much determined by these 5 forces. At times, it is a single force that is responsible for the excessive or depressive returns of an industry, but at other times, it's a combination of the 5. For the investor, it is important to notice that a specific company within an industry may handle the forces much better than the rest of the competitors.
So that's the 5 forces of Michael Porter. So it reflects that competition in an industry goes beyond the established players. The customers, suppliers, substitutes, and potential entrants are all competitors to firms in an industry and prominent depending on the particular circumstances. By thinking about how each force affects you and identifying its strength and direction, you can assess your company's position and how your company is doing well in the market. You can adjust or change your strategy according to your competitive environment to improve and deliver long-term profits. So that's all about the competitive strategy of Michael Porter. I hope you learned something from it, and I will end my topic here by sharing some quotes and thoughts of Michael Porter.